Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're going to do a quick midweek update of this week in cannabis. Now, before we jump in, if you learned something or you enjoy this video, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, definitely subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. But I'd recommend going back and watching episode 3 and 4 of Reality Check Cannabis in 2020 to learn about the US multi-state operators and the Canadian LPs. And then you can get caught up to speed watching episodes of This Week in Cannabis leading up until now. But the great news is that we are seeing some powerful politicians reaffirm their spoken word with written words. For example, to start, Biden's Attorney General pick restates pledge to respect cannabis laws in writing, which is great. Merrick Garland is reiterating what he said. President Joe Biden's nominee to serve as the U.S. Attorney General has reiterated in written testimony to multiple senators that he does not feel the Department of Justice should be using its resources to prosecute people who are acting in compliance with state cannabis laws. This is kind of the best possible thing we could hear from the Attorney General. Now, just to scroll down, not to waste too much time, legalization advocates are pleased that the nominee has put his views about respecting state cannabis laws into writing. This is big because you can say it, and then once you put it into writing, it makes it, it makes you that much more liable for what you've said before because you've put it in writing and you've put that intention out there to many people. For all intents and purposes, Garland's responses indicate that he has no intention of curbing the progress made in the regulation and consumer access of cannabis. And for that, we are relieved, the political director of NORML. So the main thing, pending successful confirmation, we look forward to working with him and his team to re-implement a policy similar to the Cole Memo and explore solutions to grant immediate relief for those who have suffered federal charges as Congress continues to negotiate. So basically, no intention to curb the progress. That's what we want to see out of that, which is great. And then we saw this tweet from Todd Harrison. This is from Schumer's latest email to his priorities for this Congress. This came out March 1st, and we see next is criminal justice reform, and voters agree. Voters in 4 more states this election voted to legalize adult recreational use of cannabis, and that proves once again that it's past time to work on the undue harm done by misplaced priorities, of course. And I just want to point out, someone made a comment here, obviously a very ignorant comment that was like, oh, just do it now. And I just want to point out what this guy said back. Hey, with all due respect, you've obviously never held elected office or worked for government on legislative administrative side. Me too. And I don't understand, half of the complexities, but I know that there is, right? So reforming government policy, trying to turn a very big boat, it cannot be done on a dime. You must coordinate diversified interests who are not seeing through the same lens, which just goes to show how much actually has to be done. But I just want to point that out because that came out on March 1st, and then on March 2nd, we have this article, Chuck Schumer says federal cannabis legislation is a priority again. He's just, again, reaffirming what he has said, and he says this to top lawmakers, but this was in an email, which Todd was referring to. After first describing plans to tackle climate change and income inequality, Schumer turned next to cannabis because, well, cannabis does help with income inequality. So main thing, I'm not going to read this again because he just mentioned it, but it's time to decriminalize cannabis nationally. So, again, it's going to take time to reform the MORE Act and the States Act and put them into a new bill, which will eventually decriminalize. But the main thing that we do have to look forward to is the potential of the Safe Banking Act coming much sooner. So anyways, that's a great update. Mexican lawmakers to vote on cannabis legislation next week. So I know last video I mentioned April 1st seemed to have been the day where we can expect some news. Now, a long-awaited floor vote on the proposal to legalize cannabis in Mexico has been scheduled in the Chamber of Deputies for next week, a move that comes months after the Senate approved reform. So again, it's taking time, but we have a date for March 9th. Thing is, there's no draft opinion. When there's a bill, it'll go to the Health and Justice Committee. They still have to agree on it. But nonetheless, we've got a date on March 9th where we should see progress towards April 1st. So that's what we want to check in for. Now, hey, it's official. Virginia joins 15 other states in legalizing cannabis. So there's now 16 U.S. states. With adult use cannabis legislation laws, those sales would not start until 2024. So what does this tell me? I mean, is this a win for Virginia's people? Not really, because although it's legal now and cannabis will be decriminalized, you're not creating a legal market, which is just going to create a thriving black market. And, it's just, I see this as a win for politicians and not for the people. So I hope people of Virginia can try and speed up the process of sales and this infrastructure because you need that. But that, not necessarily a win for the people, sadly, in my view. Now, Pennsylvania governor grants 69 cannabis pardons as lawmakers move bipartisan legalization bill. 69 is not a lot, but again, it's better than none. And this is just the type of leadership that governors need to be setting forth and setting the example for other ones to follow. Now, again, Obviously, we want to see this bipartisan bill for adult use in Pennsylvania move sooner than later, but he announced that he granted expedited pardons for low-level cannabis offenses for 69 more people. So again, a lot of, well, oh, it's only 69. Look, it's a step in the right direction, and it's just good to see a leader in a position of power do this. And as we saw Illinois do the same thing, we just hope more states will follow. Now, to recap, though, stocks of cannabis company or American operators outpace overall market with 20.5 percentage gain in February. So the American Cannabis Operator Index. Now this just goes to compare that there's a global one, which has all of the countries, and then there's a US and a Canadian one. It moved higher for the 5th consecutive month in February, advancing 20.5% to 93.7. Now, that is just like the mark of the index. Now, this is for everyone who's new here to point out this is what has happened in the last year. So for anyone getting worried about this pullback, look, these companies are still undervalued, which does mean that this chart should technically continue to keep going up. And I think that's what everyone's anticipating. Like, it's been up this high before, way before this progress has been made, right? So this is the bull run getting ready to take off again. And again, just to highlight the catalysts we have in March, Curaleaf announcing earnings, then Ayer announcing, then Green Thumb announcing, then Trulieve announcing. Cresco has not announced their day yet. Harvest, many others have not yet. But that's coming. Safe Banking Act is coming. And then all the reform measures are coming. So yes, these companies are still severely undervalued compared to Canadian LPs and other companies in fast exponential growth industries. So just have to point that out. This is just the lull period, but we will continue trending upwards, I believe, in the long term. Now, California, this is just something to point out. Again, it's a precedent, but hopefully we see more states do this. No more urine tests. Yes, because you don't test for alcohol, and alcohol is clearly the problem, or just a big foundational problem for many issues that people just want to ignore and pretend is not real, right? So, but proposed California law would end most workplace cannabis tests. This is great. I just want to point out, when I moved overseas to teach in Korea, I had to quit cannabis because I knew they would test me. When I got there, 2 of my coworkers who had, had a party with their family and packed their lives to go move and teach English in Korea, were sent back home because they didn't pass the drug test. So it's just like, they were nice people, but because they didn't know that they had to quit for a certain period of time because they were getting tested, they lost that opportunity. And just think about how unfortunately dumb it made them feel in that moment, and then have to go back home and face, just like, it's so unfortunate. It didn't have to happen, but anyways, it's a precedent. Hopefully more states follow. Now, the U.S. versus Canadian market opportunity, just to reiterate again, I think this is a very good visual to emphasize a few things. The 2020 cannabis sales, where we see Canadian LPs at about $2.6 billion and U.S. up to about $18 billion. 2030 projected cannabis market, still like under $10 billion in Canada. And then, $100 billion in the U.S. and then the total market cap of the big 5 LPs. And, if you see the Canadian LPs and the U.S. multi-state operators have the same market cap when there are many more multi-state operators than LPs. Now, again, this is just the big 5, but regardless, if they're on the same page and these Canadian companies are valued at a 13x multiple or 83x multiple for revenue and EBITDA, whereas the U.S. ones are measured at 6 and 17, there's a lot more room for growth for these, again, U.S. multi-state operators than the Canadian operators based on fundamentals. And again, if you're investing, though, you should base everything on fundamentals. Now, jumping over to good news in sales, cannabis-infused beverages sales up 40%, held by consumers seeking convenient products. So this also comes over, I think, in January, people want to not drink as much, try and do a bit of a sober start to the new year. But sales of cannabis-infused beverages were up 40% last year. So never mind. Forget what I said that. That was referring to dry January. But overall last year, up 40%. So that is big growth. And again, I think this is just because the U.S. is a lot more lenient on their beverage laws than Canada, whereas sales for cannabis beverages have not been huge here. But according to the data from Seattle-based firm Headset, sales for cannabis-infused beverages increased 40% versus 2019 in these main states: California, Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington. So again, though, these will be the first states to do it, and it will spread. These are the states that are doing it first. They have the courage. We gotta love them for that. Now, cannabis-infused beverages sales rose from $67.8 million in 2019 to $95 million in 2020. Still pennies in numbers compared to total flower sales, but still that's a lot more growth, whereas in Canada it was like maybe 1 million to 3 million over the different quarter. Now, jumping over to Canada beverage sales, but again, this is just good that more people are buying more different varieties of products as opposed to just the flower. But I saw this come out yesterday. Canopy Growth launches CBD beverages brand Quattro in the US. Now, it is CBD infused as well, because obviously you can't do THC yet. I don't know all the details, but hey, good on you, Canopy. This is awesome. You need sales. You have the beverage technology. You need to get into the U.S. Without a doubt. So they are launching these. I did not get the details and exactly where they're launching yet. I wanted to point this out. I think it's hilarious. To celebrate the event, Quattro has partnered with iconic celebrity astrologist Susan Miller of Astrology Zone. So, like, my God, is Canopy ever good at marketing and just finding unique audiences to get into? And just as a point on that, we've got Seth Rogen and, well, Jay-Z as well, not affiliated to Canopy, but Jay-Z, I love this ad. The war on drugs worked if systemic racism was the goal. Hard truth, but you can't ignore that any longer when you're seeing these visible signs. Plus, Seth Rogen is planning to launch Houseplant, which is his Canopy partnered with, or his joint venture with Canopy, a brand that is sold in Canada now, into the US next week. In California only. I don't know how they're doing this as well, like the details on how he can get into California. He probably is a California resident, so he can open something, or he can start something there, get it shipped in there. Don't know the details, but that's awesome, because again, he's like, Seth Rogen is breaking a boundary. Never has a company under a Canadian LP been able to start selling cannabis with THC in a state. So we're going to have to see how this unfolds. But Jay-Z had one more. Yeah, this one's, you can marry your first cousin in more states than you can buy recreational cannabis. Oh, state of times in the US, eh? Gotta love what you guys have done so far, but lots of issues to fix. And just to point out on the whole celebrity endorsement and using marketing to spread the word into different markets, Martha Stewart says CBD for pets will be a $10 billion industry in 2 years. She's not wrong at all, especially because of how much people love to spend on their pets. It's insane. And unfortunately, I've never had a pet. I want to have one so that I can give it all that love eventually too. But again, this is Canopy's approach, and they've done a good thing of this, is using, like, this is how you use celebrities to market and brand that way. Now, of course, Canopy needs to focus on making revenue and ensuring their operations make their money back, but just pointing that out is they have been a force in this sense, so that is good awareness for the cannabis industry overall. Now, this is from Quebec. Quebec was the second largest province in Canada with a population of 8 million people. Our first largest province is Ontario with 14.5 million, and Quebec is our French-speaking province. And des profits de 23.3 million pour la SQDC troisième trimestre. Now, I don't speak French very well. I butcher that, apologize. But just want to point out, so they brought in 173 million in the third quarter, and with a profit of 23.3 million. So I know Quebec's government said, oh, this is nice. This is very good. Now, here's the thing, though. 11 points de vente, so 11 retail stores were opened in the last quarter. So think about that. Ontario is now opening 120 stores a month going forward. Quebec opened 11. And at the end of that period, they had 56 stores. And a year ago, they had 33 stores at the end of Q3 2019. So they're like, oh yeah, this is nice considering how we've expanded. But Quebec is just highlighting the problem here is if you don't open stores for people, you're not going to make as much money as you could. And that's just what's sad, is they're leaving so much money on the table. But I guess they're realizing, like, oh, we can sell cannabis and make 23 million in tax revenue. Whoo, that's very nice. Yes, well, Quebec, get in line with Ontario and start opening more stores, and you're going to see a whole lot more of that. And unfortunately, in this article, there's no plan to open more. It doesn't say how much they would. So just wanted to point that out, though. Quebec, province of 8 million people, they only have 55 stores, hence why they're only making 173 million in 3 months, and just 23 million. When, let's compare this to a single state in the US, Illinois, their sales numbers, and I just love how. So Quebec, they're just publishing now their numbers for the end of December, for the end of end of December. Whereas Illinois, it's March 3rd, and they've already published all of their February figures already. That is quickness. That is efficiency. That's amazing. Now, although we did see a decrease in sales in February is a shorter month by 3 business days this year. We didn't have 29th, we didn't have 30th, we didn't have 31st. Do we usually have 31st? Yeah, I think we do. Well, I don't know. Anyways, it's a shorter month because of less days, and regardless, still, in a single month, where Illinois has a population of 12.5 million people, I believe, from the last time I checked, compared to Quebec with a population of 8 million. Quebec did 173 million in 3 months, while Illinois did, 80 million in a single, and they've done 160 in just 2 months, if you add these two together, or 168 million in just 2 months. But that just goes to show the difference of Illinois having 75 stores and Quebec having only 55. Retail stores matter, because if you don't have retail stores, people are going to the black market. That's just how, we've seen this unfold, and that's how this works as we venture into this new industry. And so one thing to point out is that Cresco Labs has filed a shelf prospectus, or $1 billion shelf prospectus. So basically all that means is they are saying, hey, we have big plans, and if you've got a nice chunk of money, we wouldn't mind taking it. And so that's really cool to see Cresco just getting ready. And I just cannot wait for them to announce when their earnings are going to come out. But again, this is more of Cresco getting ready to eventually be able to uplist onto US exchanges and eventually, get on there with the big boys. And we've seen Trulieve do this. We've seen GTI do this as well. They're just getting prepared. And I wanted to show you this article because, again, 2021 has seen tremendous appreciation, not just in the US or in Canada, but in global cannabis indexes in general, tracking all of this measurement and growth. Now, obviously, in their view too, the market got a bit ahead of itself. I mean, in the start of February, I was like, is this real? I thought it could keep going, but of course, you kind of catch on that like, okay, well, this pullback now that we've seen this whole month makes sense because March is really when we're expecting these catalysts. It starts with Curaleaf reporting on March 9th. So we expect Q4 was yet another quarter of solid financial performance for the largest MSOs with strong revenue growth and improving profitability, and investors are likely to be pleased. Taking a look at the leading MSOs by market cap and or revenue using Sensio as our data source, the typical MSOs is expected to report year-over-year growth of 112%. This is exponential growth. And this is phenomenal. And again, when you look at any other industry that grows quickly, they're trading at a 20x usually price to sales multiple. And a lot of these US MSOs, again, are trading at under 10x. That is where the opportunity, to go from here up here and the margin of safety so that you don't, so you see less downside. That is where this is. And just look at this. Cresco Lab's going to do 305%. Jushi could do 383%. Columbia Care 244%. And even for companies that aren't seeing hundreds, still 74% from Harvest Health, still great growth. And they've just legalized, or Arizona has just legalized for adult use. Planet 13, it's again still phenomenal numbers. 93% for Trulieve, up to 102. Curaleaf from 195 to 217, Green Thumb to 131 to 118. These are insane numbers, folks, and this is just why I've been saying to try and get in sooner than later before all these catalysts pass. Now, I wanted to share with you newcannabisventures.com. If you go to ranking, you will see all of the US cannabis companies, or all the companies in the US related to cannabis. The main ones are the US MSOs. We do have Scott's Miracle Grow, as they're just a big investor, or they're just a big donator in this industry, as a matter of fact. But we can look down here, next financials. So again, we have Curaleaf ready, we have GTI, we have Trulieve. Oh, I guess Green Thumb is the 17th, not the 16th, my bad. We've got Air. These other ones have not announced yet, but we are waiting on that, and that's going to be coming in this month, while, again, Curaleaf kickstarts on March 9th. And I just have a feeling that they said, Curaleaf, you're going to post the biggest numbers, you go first, and then we're just going to keep following, pumping unbelievable growth numbers week after week to follow you, and then maybe Safe will pass sooner than later. If Safe gets introduced next week, that would be mind-blowing and speed up things a lot. But I just wanted to show you all that, folks. So this is where we leave off on Wednesday. Hope you guys have a great day, great rest of your week, and then I will see you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis. But if you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up, as it really helps out my channel, and subscribe so that you don't miss any new videos. And again, have a great day, everybody. Hope you don't mind the new do. Time to clean up, new year, new me.